Hello and welcome to Issues of the Moment. The Strait of Hormuz has long been known as one of the world's most critical oil routes. But today, another hidden battle is drawing global attention, not over oil tankers, but over the internet itself. Beneath the waters of the Gulf lies a network of undersea data cables carrying almost all of the world's digital traffic. From banking transactions and international communications to cloud computing, artificial intelligence systems, businesses, stock markets, and social media. These cables quietly power modern life. But amid the ongoing tension, Iran, the United States, and Israel, concerns are growing that these undersea cables are becoming part of the geopolitical battlefield. Recent reports and regional developments suggest increasing concerns over tighter control of these cables, restrictions around repairs and maintenance operations, and the possibility of these systems being used as strategic leverage in the wider conflict. Experts now warn that any major disruption in this region could have consequences far beyond the Middle East, impacting economies, communications, financial systems, businesses, and digital services across the globe. So today we ask, how vulnerable is the world's digital infrastructure? Could undersea cables become the next global pressure point? And if something goes wrong beneath those waters, how prepared is the world for the fallout? Joining us to examine these critical questions is Oladayo Tosin Akinwande, a software engineer and cybersecurity researcher. My name is Justin Bemunyana. Welcome you to the program. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to Issues of the Moment. Today we are looking beyond missiles, ships and oil into another global vulnerability hidden beneath the sea, the undersea data cables powering the modern world. Our focus today is the internet under threat, Iran, Hormuz, and the world's hidden lifeline. And my guest today is a software engineer and an AI cybersecurity researcher. He's also a lecturer in Veritas University. He's Oladayo Tosin Akinwande. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the program today.
All right, thank you.
You're very much welcome. We're looking at the internet under threat, Iran, Hormuz, and the world's hidden lifeline. Let's begin from the foundation. Many people use the internet virtually every day, without realizing how it actually works. Just how important are these undersea data cables, that we keep talking about, to the modern world?
All right, thank you very much for that question. Yeah, without the undersea cable that we have around us now, we can't have cheap data, cannot have faster internet access. But before this undersea cable, we have the terrestrial cable, which has been dominant before now. But with some of this undersea cable around us right now, we can now do almost everything. Without it, you can't browse the internet faster. Talking about fintech, financial transaction all over the world, international payments, social media, and a whole lot of things that our everyday life depend upon.
So when discussions, having had what these cables underneath the water means, when discussions about the Strait of Hormuz come up, attention is, usually on oil and shipping, talking about closing the strait and diverting ships or stopping passage and all that. Why are undersea internet cables now becoming such a major global concern?
Yes, undersea cable now digital infrastructure. just like we have every other infrastructure, energy, oil, and it is very, very important. But for us, luckily for us in Nigeria, we don't have that problem with undersea cable that passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Because for us in Nigeria, our own undersea or subsea cable, passes through the Atlantic Ocean. Talking about the Equino, the Mewan cable, the WACS, the GLO1, and the SAT cable. But for some of the countries in the Gulf region, it is a big issue for them. But that doesn't mean it doesn't affect us here in Nigeria too. Yes, it affects us because now the world is now a global village. That whatever happens in country A can affect country B, and where it affects Nigeria in terms of telecommunication aspects is that we can have what we call network instability. There can be more operational costs on the part of our telecommunication company in Nigeria, and we can also have what we call latency, because like I said in the beginning, part of what we do, talking about banking, even telecom itself, internet, and a whole lot of that, we depend on some certain servers that are, that does not pass through African subsea right now, but some of them passes through the Strait of Hormuz. So interacting with them from Africa here or from Nigeria here, there is going to be what we call latency. That's waiting time or response time. So in that aspect, it affects us, but not directly. But even the indirect effect on we Africans on Nigeria is also huge if we don't manage it very well. So the issue in Strait of Hormuz, talking about both the oil and subsea cable, affects Africa indirectly. But that does not mean that we are going to have a complete internet blackout.
Okay. Now let's talk about, let's see this, what you're talking about from a global security standpoint. Amid the tensions, involving Iran, the United States, and of course Israel, we are now hearing conversations around tighter control, restrictions, and of course strategic leverage over these cables that are there. You just confirm now that they do not directly affect us, but they do affect us indirectly. Now, how serious is this development from the global security standpoint?
Yes, this is very, very serious. It's just like amid the tensions that we experience around February, March, USA, Iran, like, oh, please don't bomb some energy infrastructure, don't bomb. So, subsea cable is now becoming a very serious, critical infrastructure that if it is being tampered with, everybody is going to go down with it. International payments will be disrupted. Even most of these flight bookings, they are going to be disrupted. So there is need for, but I think this issue can be solved by policy. That no matter the tension, no matter the conflict, such infrastructure must not be tampered with. And I think that is one of the, streets and tighter control that, the global leaders need to apply. So it's a very, very serious issue.
Now, just a quick one. If a major cable disruption were to happen around Hormuz now, what immediate effect will the world begin to experience in practical terms? What immediate effect will the world start to experience?
One of the immediate effects is going to be network instability. Although there have been an alternative, route, we have the terrestrial cable is still there. It's not as if whether it's completely phased out. And then we're beginning to have satellite internet. But fortunately or unfortunately for us in Nigeria, we only have Starlink that is currently not only in operation, that at least people are familiar with that. So Africa is going to have, serious impact on this. Another issue is, I've mentioned latency. I don't want to use big technical word,
Yes,
like
obviously.
waiting time.
Okay.
You are making video calls and you are noticing some lagging.
Mm.
Are you getting it
Yes,
now?
yes.
And then you are watching program via the internet. You'll be seeing the effects. So those are the effects, the immediate effects you are going to see. I've talked about international payment. It's also part of the immediate effect that everybody and around us is going to feel it.
Some experts say that the modern world now is now dangerously dependent on a few strategic digital choke points, just like the one in the Hormuz. Has globalization, the question, and it's from your experience, has globalization made the internet more efficient or also more vulnerable?
Yes, globalization has made internet more efficient. Talking about, I always want to use financial, transaction. I can send money to someone who is in India. I can send money to anybody around the world. That is what the globalization has come about. But the vulnerability is also there, and the vulnerability is what you just mentioned now. We have the digital choke point, whereby some of the subsea or undersea cable passes through a particular tunnel. Strait of Hormuz is just a tunnel in which, fortunately, all of these cables run through this, especially within the Gulf region and even to some certain country in Africa, I think Egypt and Sudan. Except for the fact that we in Nigeria, we are lucky that our own passes through Atlantic Ocean, and majority of them converge in Lagos. And then we also have the one that is, I think, the first and the only one that is outside Lagos, the one in Akwa Ibom. But then we cannot overrule the fact that the globalization is more of a blessing, while the vulnerability is something we can deal with if we de-escalate some of this tension. The vulnerability is there, while the globalization is also there. So we cannot rule out one for another.
Okay. Now let's have a comparison. We've had such a case before, talking about the Red Sea. We understand, we've seen cable disruptions in the past in places like the Red Sea, and this also affected internet speeds and communication in parts of the world. Now, in comparison, could the Hormuz situation, if it eventually happens one day, could it create a bigger global digital shock, or would it be, what's the comparison like?
Yes, it will. It will. Because the world is now a global village. Here for us, even in Africa, we say, well, we don't have any underwater cable that passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Like I said, the only advantage we have is we may not be completely shut out of the internet. There may not be internet blackout for us. But then, relating with other parts of the world, there is going to be a shock for us. Yes, people may not be able to book flights because some of these data centers, some of their cables passes through that. But now that people are now beginning to see that we shouldn't have a digital, choke points, that let's begin to more or less like you are spreading your risk. So people now begin to have an alternative, having data center here and there, so that even eventually, if one is being disrupted, one can continue to work. But I can tell you, if it happens one day, there's going to be a shock. Even the one you referenced that happens, the rest, it affected us in Nigeria for like about 3 days. You find out that maybe the banking sector, they can have some lagging in their operation and their transactions. So definitely we are going to be affected, the world at large.
Now, you are an artificial intelligence and cybersecurity researcher. From your findings or from your research, there are, let's say, many global technology companies like Google, Microsoft, Meta, and maybe Amazon, that depend heavily on these cables, if I'm right.
Yes.
Yes. Now, if they depend on these cable networks, how exposed, are major tech companies and digital economies to what is happening in the Gulf of Guinea right now, in that Gulf region right now?
Yes, they are exposed, but majority of them now spread their data center, not just concentrating in that place.
In that
And
region,
then as in the case of Iran, some of them are now beginning to pay like a kind of passage money to be able to, so that they won't be able to touch their cable.
infrastructure.
Yes,
Okay.
it's just like what we also experience in the oil. Okay, for your ship to
Be safe. Passage
pass
and all that,
safe, passage fee. So I think that is just the implication for them.
Does this have any ripple effect on the global economy?
Of course, it does, because that we now have monetary effects. So probably maybe if you have been paying so amounts of money to pay for their data center, and then now that they are also paying a passage fee, then that amount is going to reflect on what you are paying before. So everybody will have to bear it.
Now let's we've been talking about alternatives. Let's look closer to that area now. Some countries are now exploring the possibility, or let's say alternative overland fiber routes, if that is what it's called, and additional subsea pathways, to reduce dependence on sensitive regions like Hormuz. But how practical and sustainable are these alternatives to these underwater cables?
Yes, an alternative is still going to be an alternative. It's not going to completely replace it. But alternatives are very, very important in case of disruptions. And that is what we have also been experiencing here in Nigeria. We have the Starlink. And I think currently Amazon is also, having something like that. But they've not started, they are not fully operational. So they are sustainable. You can see that like the model the Starlink is using, they are using end user model, like meaning they are relating directly with the end user. In fact, if you are very, very smart enough, you can even install your Starlink yourself. If you go on the streets, you can get your Starlink and put it up. And if you even stay in a very remote area where you don't have the some of this broadband, I mean the telecom tower. So with Starlink, you are good to go. So they are sustainable, and I think currently in Nigeria, people have been trying to explore that, even though it has its own vulnerability in which I wouldn't want us to talk about. So I think the only thing is we can now begin to come up with a policy to regulate them and to make them to be more sustainable, and to call for more competitions. We should allow more satellite internet to come on board, but then with a very strict regulations, so that we can have alternative everywhere.
Well, looking ahead, do you think government and global technology institutions are taking this threat seriously, enough? Or is the world still underestimating the importance of these hidden systems beneath the sea? Do you think the governments around the world are taking this issue seriously enough?
Yes, they are taking it seriously, because broadband, they have been declared to be critical infrastructure for long. So, and for those infrastructure of that big value and big budgets. So no one will just fold his hands and just watch them being disrupted anyhow. But I've always maintained they are not something that you can maintain with a fix of maybe with a line of codes. They are not software, and that is why it is important that policies are set around some of this infrastructure. So the world leaders need to, come together and ensure that whatever tension that is escalating, whatever conflict that is brewing, subsea cables are serious infrastructure that you must not tamper with. It's just like as it has been declared that in a war situation there are some places you cannot attack. You cannot attack hospital, you can't attack unarmed civilians, children. All those things have been declared to be genocidal. So I think the world should come together and also declare, make a policy around that. So I think that is what I think global institutions, leaders need to, come around and come together and make a policy or legislation that affects that critical national infrastructure.
Well, thank you so much. But finally, before I let you go, your last words. Just as it stands right now, the tensions in the region are still unresolved completely yet. Now, as your final word to the governments, the technology companies, and global institutions, what should they be doing to secure this digital lifeline before much bigger crises emerge?
Well, finally, I will want to, appeal to world leaders. We need to call for peace. We need to sue for calm in best way we can, because for us in Africa, we are still having, this digital divide, and then if you are now having some of this, this tension going around, is going to further divide us digitally, because we may not be able to have alternative like the rest of the advanced country, talking about digital satellite internet. Like for us in Nigeria, it is still not yet something that you can still see every day. So we still have to, appeal to world leaders that they should, de-escalate the tension in best way they can. And to the technologies and company, yes, data center has to be, be in multiple locations. It's just like you don't put all your egg in one basket, so that eventually if there is disruption in one place, then life can continue. Okay. And for Nigeria too, I will also want to appeal to the country, to Nigeria as a country, to invest much more in this critical infrastructure in terms of energy. Energy has become a serious issue. Like the tension in the Strait of Hormuz, Iran and USA, as we have the issue on the hub prices, it's going to affect our telecom, and that was why I was saying that it's not affecting us directly, but the indirect effect too is a serious one. For instance, the telecom, most of them are being powered by diesel, and then for long there has not been subsidy on diesel, and now that we are also having oil crisis due to these tensions going in the Gulf region, definitely the operational costs around the telecom towers is going to increase, and that is going to place much burden on we the users and the subscribers of these services, because one way or the other, even if the tariff is not being hiked, then your value is going to be reduced. You must have been hearing some reports that, oh, this is also network communication, they have been reducing my bandwidth, reducing this and that. That is the effect that people are not seeing. So we need to also look at alternative energy, even though there are some telecom towers and masts that have been using alternative energy, but you know, the operational cost has increased. So Nigeria should also invest heavily in alternative energy.
Well, thank you so much, Oladeyo Tosin Kinwande. Thank you so much for your thoughts and your insights on this particular topic of discourse. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
You're very much welcome. Well, that has been Issues of the Moment. Today we've examined a hidden but critical part of the modern world: the undersea cables that quietly power global communication, finance, technology, and connectivity. As tensions continue around the Strait of Hormuz, the conversation is no longer only about oil and shipping routes, but also about the digital infrastructure connecting billions of people worldwide. Because in today's world, that happens, what happens beneath the sea can affect life above it in ways many people never imagine. My name is Justin Bemuya. Thank you so much for watching. Stay informed, stay engaged, and join us again on Issues of the Moment.